experiment of DNA with bonobo chimps. Brake and Savage, who are researchers who focus on the study of chimpanzees, also say that bonobo chimps have the greatest receptive dependency over their species. We're going to take a closer look at how bonobo chimps learn, communicate, and show empathy. First, let's look at the history and background in studying the language of bonobo chimps. According to Jane Hugh, in 1930, we started researching chimps. A man named Kellogg adopted a 7.5-month-old chimp named Gua and raised him alongside of his 10-year-old son, human 10-year-old son. At 1 year of age, Gua was able to respond to verbal commands but could never speak. They then started to teach apes alternate, nonverbal ways to communicate. In 1960, at the University of Nevada, psychologists Alan and Beatrix raised a chimp named Washu as a child. She had her own toothbrush, books, and clothes. She even rode in the family's car with them. Washu learned more than 250 signs. Scientists then became very interested in studying apes. They tried studying orangutans, gorillas, and bonobos. Gorillas and bonobos showed the most promise and best results to scientists. The next set of research was done on Mata and her son Kanzi. According to Jane Hugh, Mata was being trained by a lexigram but didn't show much promise. Kanzi started using the lexigram and began to invent new words by combining symbols, referring to the past and present events, and understanding points of view. So in order for these bonobos to learn, they need to be taught in the way that humans are. According to Brake and Sue Savage, you need to immerse the bonobos in a language-rich culture during early infancy and provide interactions and opportunities for observational learning so they will develop comprehension skills. And that's what happened with Kanzi and Mata because she was born into an environment where we immersed her in our culture and language. They also said that bonobos learn by participating in lexical markers used by adults and undergo decontextualization of symbol comprehension as they mature. So a lexigram board, like I referred to earlier with Mata and Kanzi, is one that looks like this. It has about 400 abstract symbols, and they denote words for objects and concepts. So this is just one example of one. And here's another example. So they're really interesting with different symbols, and they say the words at the bottom, but obviously there's so many more. I couldn't put all 400 on there. So those are a few examples. So an example of the way that they use these were, they used the words good and bad and added them to the board to indicate approval and disapproval of Kanzi's actions. So Kanzi would lexigram or press the word bad 3 times before doing something he knew was not good. And he would lexigram the word bad, so press bad only once after he had already done something. So not only are they using it to communicate simple words, but they're using it as past and present events, which is kind of neat. So according to Stephen Calley and David Spurritt, Kanzi is able to understand simple novel requests. So an example of this would be, they asked Kanzi, would you put grapes in the swimming pool? He got up, walked to the food, picked them up, and tossed it into the water. To avoid what people may think as an obvious command, they gave him more of a command that wasn't as obvious put together, so such as put some water on the vacuum cleaner. At first, Kanzi was a little confused by the 2 actions, but to the experimenter's surprise, he did. So he's not only memorizing these commands that they're giving him, but he's realizing and comprehending the 2 actions and putting them together. So according to Kluger, when given kale and asked to describe it, Kanzi described it as slow lettuce because it takes longer to chew than regular lettuce. So this shows that they not only learn language, but they also learn cognitive thought. Another way that bonobos show cognitive thought is through empathy. A story that represents this well is one of a bonobo named Connie. According to Philip Manny, after a bird flew into a glass, Connie picked up the bird, climbed to the top of the tree, unfolded the wings, and tossed it to safety. According to Brake and Savage, the ability to comprehend simple speech, understand symbol use, and engage and intentionally communicate routines appear to have developed prior to the emergence of language as we typically think of it. So even before we started studying bonobo chimps, we realized that they had a language of their own and interacted with each other before us. Research shows that we have to teach bonobos to learn and communicate with us, but they have clearly been communicating with each other and other species and showing empathy long before we began studying.